They came in at dawn, 8 motorcycles in a staggered column, throttles wide open across 400 meters of flat, coverless terrain east of the tree line, and they never heard the first round. The lead rider folded sideways off his seat before the engine note even changed. The second motorcycle veered left, and the rider behind him caught a round through the torso before his hands left the handlebars. Within 11 seconds, the column had lost its first 3 vehicles. Within 90 seconds, every single motorcycle was down. Riders crumpled on the dirt, engines still ticking, wheels still spinning. And the Ukrainian sniper teams that did this never moved from concealment. Not once. This is not a story about a single ambush. This is a case study in why Russia's most celebrated tactical adaptation of this war, the motorcycle assault, was never an adaptation at all. It was a confession that the Russian military has burned through so much armor, so many infantry fighting vehicles, so many trained crews, that it now sends men across kill zones on $2,000 Chinese dirt bikes with no protection, no suppressive fire integration, and no survivable withdrawal plan. And Ukrainian forces have learned not just how to stop them, but how to turn every single motorcycle column into a masterclass in defensive lethality. What you're about to understand is how that lethality works, why it keeps getting worse for Moscow, and why the motorcycle doctrine Russia tried to systematize is now producing casualties at a rate that would be unconscionable to any Western military on Earth. Let me walk you through what this actually means at the strategic level, because the mainstream framing of Russia's motorcycle assaults has consistently missed the deeper variable. The coverage treats these attacks as though they are daring, unconventional, perhaps even innovative. Speed, agility, low signature movement. The implication is that Russia found a clever workaround to the drone-saturated battlefield. But that framing is fundamentally wrong. The motorcycle assault is not a tactic chosen for its advantages. It is a tactic chosen because every better option has already been destroyed, depleted, or rendered suicidal by Ukrainian fires. Pull the lens back to where this started. When Russia launched its full-scale invasion in February 2022, the assumption embedded in Russian military planning was that armored columns, tanks, BMPs, BTRs, would punch through Ukrainian defenses with overwhelming mass. That assumption collapsed within weeks. It collapsed again during the battle for Avdiivka. It collapsed catastrophically near Pokrovsk in 2024 and 2025, where Ukrainian anti-tank mines, FPV drones, and precision artillery turned every armored approach route into a graveyard of burning steel. By mid-2024, Russian commanders on the Donetsk front faced an impossible arithmetic. The mission demanded forward movement, the terrain demanded speed, but every platform capable of delivering speed and protection was either destroyed, damaged, or held back from the front because losses had become industrially unsustainable. And this is the part most analysis skips entirely. Russia did not adopt the motorcycle because it studied the problem and found a superior solution. Russia adopted the motorcycle because it ran out of the inferior solutions it preferred. The Institute for the Study of War documented as early as mid-2025 that Moscow was planning to systematically integrate motorcycles, ATVs, and buggies into its summer and autumn offensive doctrine. The Russian Ministry of Defense formalized training programs. Defense Minister Belousov personally visited motorcycle training ranges in the Leningrad Military District. By spring of 2025, motorcycle and ATV courses were running across occupied territories. Russia did not stumble into this. Russia built an institutional framework around a platform that has an 80% casualty rate in offensive employment. Let that sink in for a moment. The Russian military looked at a tactic that kills the majority of the men who attempt it and decided the answer was to train more men to attempt it. The logic, if you can call it that, rested on 3 assumptions. First, that speed would compress the time between detection and engagement, meaning motorcycles could cross exposed terrain faster than Ukrainian drone operators could react. Second, that electronic warfare pods mounted on motorcycles could jam incoming FPV drones. Third, that mass, sending 6, 8, 12, even 150 motorcycles simultaneously, would saturate Ukrainian defenses and allow at least some riders to reach the objective. Every one of those assumptions has been systematically destroyed by Ukrainian defenders, and this is where the real story begins. The Ukrainian counter-motorcycle system is not a single weapon. It is a layered, integrated defensive architecture that turns the motorcycle's supposed advantages into compounding liabilities. Start with detection. Ukrainian reconnaissance drones now provide continuous overhead surveillance of Russian staging areas, approach routes, and likely assault corridors. In one documented engagement near Pokrovsk, in December 2025, Ukrainian drone operators from the 425th Skelya Assault Regiment identified a Russian motorcycle column before it even departed the city's industrial zone. And the column was tracked in real time as it moved toward the settlement of Hryshine. The lead vehicle was struck roughly 1 kilometer after departure. Additional footage showed all remaining vehicles burning simultaneously, evidence that dozens of FPV drones had been pre-positioned along the expected route, waiting for the column to enter the engagement zone. And it gets even more serious from here. The Ukrainians did not just destroy the column, they had already turned the approach route itself into a physical trap. The road was littered with wreckage from a previous motorcycle assault that had been annihilated 2 days earlier. Destroyed vehicles and fallen soldiers from the December 10th attack still blocked the roadway. Barbed wire stretched along both sides of the road. When the second wave of motorcycle riders reached the debris field, they had no choice but to stop and dismount. And and the moment they dismounted, they became stationary infantry in the open, completely exposed to Ukrainian cluster munitions and FPV strikes. The assault was not just defeated, it was architecturally pre-defeated. The kill zone had been designed before the motorcycles even left their staging point. This is the hidden military variable that separates Ukrainian defensive performance from anything Russia has been able to counter. Ukraine has evolved what Brigadier General Vasyl Sirotenko, chief of the engineer forces, has described as a system of battlefield control, a deep, multi-layered network of engineering obstacles, drone surveillance corridors, remote mining, and dispersed small unit positions that do not merely resist assaults, but actively shape them. Anti-tank ditches and Dragon's Teeth channel vehicle movement into predictable corridors. Concertina wire belts, sometimes 18 rows deep, rapidly emplaced by modified BTM-3 trench-digging vehicles, trap dismounted infantry in zones that have already been pre-registered for artillery and drone strikes. Covered interconnected trenches with anti-drone netting protect Ukrainian defenders from above, while routes extending up to 100 kilometers behind the front line allow resupply and rotation without exposure. The motorcycle in this environment is not an asset. It is a delivery mechanism that brings Russian soldiers into a pre-built destruction sequence. And the sniper dimension makes it even worse. The real question is why snipers have become such a devastating element of the anti-motorcycle defense, and the answer is deceptively simple. A motorcycle rider crossing open terrain at 60 or 70 kilometers per hour sounds fast until you understand what a trained marksman with a modern rifle actually sees. He sees a target moving along a predictable axis with zero ability to take evasive action, zero armor, zero concealment, and zero capacity to return effective fire while controlling a motorcycle on rough ground. The rider cannot hear incoming rounds over the engine noise. He cannot identify the firing position. He cannot communicate with his column because his hands are occupied and his attention is consumed by the terrain surface. A sniper team in a concealed position with a clear line of sight across an approach route does not need to engage the entire column. It needs to kill the lead rider. The moment the lead motorcycle goes down, the following riders face an instantaneous decision catastrophe: brake, swerve, accelerate, or dismount, all of which expose them further. This is exactly what Ukrainian forces have been executing with increasing lethality. The commander of Ukraine's air assault forces, Major General Ole Apostol, confirmed in April 2026 that in the Pokrovsk sector, his soldiers are killing Russian motorcycle riders in close combat with automatic rifles. His exact words were revealing: as soon as they hear motorcycles, they emerge from cover and eliminate the enemy. He described an incident where multiple motorcycles were destroyed by a single fighter with an assault rifle. The 92nd Assault Brigade has documented sniper engagements against dismounted motorcycle riders in the Pokrovsk direction. Ukrainian special forces have ambushed motorcycle groups, killing riders and capturing both prisoners and undamaged motorcycles as trophies. In the Donetsk region, one such ambush was so close to the Russian bivouac that the Special Operations Team engaged the riders essentially within sight of their own staging area, and the tactical humiliation compounds. In March 2026, a deputy commander from the Typhoon Special Unit, call sign Scorpion, described a mechanized assault using motorcycles and lightly armored MTLB vehicles on the outskirts of Pokrovsk. The MTLBs were destroyed before reaching Ukrainian positions. Small motorcycle groups tried to infiltrate through tree lines and were eliminated. Two pairs of motorcyclists managed to physically reach the defensive positions and were destroyed directly at the line. Reached the position and died at the position. That is what constitutes a best-case outcome for Russia's motorcycle doctrine. Arrival equals death. Now pull the lens back further because the scale of this failure is not captured by any single engagement. In April 2025, Russian forces launched what may have been the single most catastrophic motorcycle assault of the entire war near Pokrovsk. 150 motorcycles were deployed to seize a highway intersection that Ukrainian forces had previously recaptured. Ukrainian drone reconnaissance detected the staging and preparation in advance. FPV drones swarmed the assault column during movement. Over two-thirds of the riders were killed within minutes. Because communication with the motorcycle force collapsed, Russian commanders, apparently unaware the assault had already failed, then sent an entire battalion of BMPs to reinforce positions that no longer existed. Those BMPs drove directly into anti-tank mines, FPV drones, and pre-zeroed artillery. The total result, 96 motorcycles destroyed, 21 armored fighting vehicles lost, over 240 soldiers killed or wounded. Zero ground gained, zero objectives achieved. Ukrainian President Zelensky personally confirmed the defense and commended the units involved. In April 2026, Ukraine's 81st Airmobile Brigade repelled the largest motorcycle assault on the Sloviansk front since the beginning of the year. 16 motorcycles in groups of 3 to 4 attempted a breakthrough. Timely detection and coordinated fires destroyed the assault and wiped out the dismounted infantry. The brigade's statement was matter-of-fact, despite mounting pressure, soldiers of the 81st Brigade continued to detect and destroy the occupiers. The broader lesson here is not that motorcycles are ineffective weapons. It is that Russia has constructed an entire offensive doctrine around a platform that only exists because the platforms it replaced have been consumed by this war at an industrial rate. As of late May 2026, Ukraine's General Staff reports Russian total equipment losses exceeding 11,950 tanks, more than 24,600 armored fighting vehicles, and over 4,200 pieces of special equipment. Personnel losses are reported at approximately 1,360,000 killed and wounded. Daily casualties hover near 1,000, almost exactly the number Russia manages to recruit each day, meaning even a marginal increase in losses tips the entire Russian force structure into a manpower deficit it cannot recover from without mobilization that Putin continues to refuse. Civilian vehicles, motorcycles, buggies, scooters, cars, golf carts, and vans now account for 90% of Russian vehicle losses along the front. Not 90% of motorcycle losses, 90% of all vehicle losses. This is not a professional military employing unconventional tactics. This is an army that has consumed its own industrial-era equipment inheritance and replaced it with consumer goods purchased from Chinese manufacturers at $2,000 to $4,000 per unit. The most commonly documented motorcycle on the front is the Sharmak Sport 280, an enduro-style bike sourced from a Dubai-based company with factories in China. Russia's domestic motorcycle industry cannot meet frontline demand. The bikes arrive through a patchwork of volunteer organizations, regional authorities, personal purchases, and state procurement. The same fragmented supply chain that delivers donated sleeping bags and tourniquets from Russian civilians because the Ministry of Defense cannot supply its own soldiers. And the sniper ambush is the punctuation mark on all of this. Because the sniper does not require a $500 FPV drone. The sniper does not require a satellite data link or a Starlink terminal. The sniper requires a rifle, a concealed position, a clear lane of fire, and the knowledge that a motorcycle rider on open terrain is one of the most vulnerable targets a modern battlefield can produce. When Ukrainian special forces set an ambush, they are not countering advanced technology. They are exploiting the oldest vulnerability in land warfare, the exposure of an unprotected human body moving through a defended space. That Russia has made this the centerpiece of its offensive tactics in 2025 and 2026 is not evidence of adaptation. It is evidence that the adaptation has been exhausted. History will record this phase of the war as the period in which the Russian military, unable to sustain combined arms operations, unable to produce armored vehicles at replacement rate, unable to train crews faster than they are killed, institutionalized a tactic that treats its own soldiers as expendable delivery mechanisms for a position that most of them will never reach alive. The Frontelligence Institute's detailed assessment of motorcycle assault groups concluded what every Ukrainian drone operator and sniper already knew. Casualty rates reveal two consistent patterns. Either the motorcycle assaults fail completely, or success comes at a cost so steep that only one in several groups survives to reach the objective. Western military analysts have openly asked whether such losses would be tolerable to any NATO commander. The answer, of course, is no, not even close. The question that remains is whether Russia can generate an answer to the defensive system Ukraine has built, a system that integrates engineering obstacles, drone surveillance, remote mining, electronic warfare, dispersed infantry, sniper screens, and pre-positioned FPV ambush quarters into a unified kill architecture. Some Russian analysts have pointed to drone swarms and ground robots as potential breakthrough technologies. Those systems are in development, but they are not yet fielded at scale, and Ukraine's defensive engineering continues to deepen faster than Russia's offensive innovation can penetrate it. What you are witnessing is not a tactical curiosity. It is not a human interest story about soldiers on dirt bikes. It is a structural exposure of a military that has burned through its modern equipment, burned through its trained professionals, and now burns through its replacements on motorcycles that cost less than a used sedan. And every time a Ukrainian sniper team drops the lead rider of a motorcycle column and watches the rest of the formation disintegrate in 11 seconds of confusion and fire, that sniper is not just winning an engagement. That sniper is writing the verdict on an entire theory of offensive warfare that was already dead before the motorcycles left the staging area. The war is not slowing down. The motorcycle assaults are not stopping. And the Ukrainian defensive architecture that turns every approach route into a pre-built kill zone is not getting weaker. It is getting deeper, more automated, more networked, and more lethal. The questions that come next, whether Russia can sustain this loss rate, whether mobilization becomes unavoidable, whether the motorcycle doctrine is quietly abandoned or tragically doubled down on, those questions do not have simple answers. But they are the questions that will define the next phase of this war. Stay with us because those answers are coming into focus faster than most people realize. And if this analysis gave you a clearer picture of what is actually happening on the battlefield, subscribe to this channel so you do not miss what comes next. We are building toward a goal here, and every subscriber brings us closer. I will see you in the next one.